So we would like to extend a warm welcome to everybody who is on the call this afternoon for our ACCA paper APM. And in terms of our coverage this afternoon, we're looking at how to evaluate performance reports. How do we evaluate performance reports? One of the issues that we want to look at, and also other related issues that are part of financial analysis. Okay. So from our last class, we did touch on the subject of evaluating performance report, and we shared the slide when we say this slide is important for us. And that's a slide which we shared, and today I want to simply apply this slide. Okay, so if you remember, we said that years back, the type of questions we used to see on financial performance was traditionally ratios. So we would be asked to calculate some ratios and to comment on the performance of the company using the ratios that we would have calculated. So the major question was to comment on the performance of the company. So this was really the question that characterized this paper. But we did say that now the things have changed today. Okay. So we would comment on the performance of the company. So this was a traditional question. But we say today things have changed a little bit, and not a little bit, so much we can say. It's not just about commenting on the performance of the company. No, what we have today is a changed role. What we see is a changed role, where they want you to comment on the performance report itself. So the thinking is that at your level, you have already gone beyond commenting on the performance of the company, whether the company has done well or not. Yeah. At your level, what we expect you to do is you help us whether the performance reports are suitable. So we want you to evaluate the report itself for us and give us some recommendation. So we're looking forward to the recommendations, but also to tell us whether where we haven't done well. How do we do so? That's exactly what we want to talk about. So the first way of evaluating a report is to answer this question. To what extent does the reporting system capture the contents of the mission or the high-level goals, and also the strategies to achieve these objectives? So what we want to do now is let's look at the exam question. How would you break down your answer? How would you arrange your answer? We'll start by looking at the marking key. So let's look at the marking key for this question. The question that we gave you to do. Yeah, so this question had 13 marks. So look at the marking key. The marking key tells you what is expected from us. So here's what is expected from us from this marking key. 1 mark per point must be based on scenario information, breaking down the mission. Give us a breakdown of the mission. Before you evaluate whether the report captures the mission, do a breakdown and say that the marker can go up to 2 marks, depending on how well you have done the job. An example has been given here. Identify priority of objectives. Pick out the strategies. So you need to tell us what are the main objectives. You bring them out. You bring out the main objectives for us. Also, you highlight the strategies that the company has put in place So what strategies has the company put in place to achieve the objectives? So look at the objectives and the strategies that we put in place to achieve these objectives. So after you've broken them down, then you come to the next item, an assessment now of whether the report meets the mission. So we're saying we can go up to 12, not up to 12, up to 10. You can award up to 10 marks. Okay. Then we have said that as you can see, most of the marks out of the 13, most of the marks are here. That's a primary work. So most of the marks are here. That's where most of the marks are. Then, as we said in our notes, there's also other points. These other points, we can go up to 4. We can't give you more than 4. So these other points, no matter how well you write, for instance, if somebody, let's take an extreme case, somebody didn't do that and he just went on these other points, the maximum marks that the marker will be able to give you, he won't give above 4. So if you have written very well, I will simply give you 4 out of 13. So we're talking a situation where somebody, for some reason, they have missed out this part. They have not done anything. Then they have just focused on what we call other points. And they have gone on and on writing on other points. What they're saying is that I will not give you as a marker more than 4 out of 13. Here, when you do the breakdown, I am allowed as a marker to go as high as 2. Assessment of whether the report meets its mission, as a marker can go as much as 10. Of course, it's not easy to give 10 out of 10. You've got to be very exceptional. But this is the way ACCA marking key goes. So this marking key tells us how we must evaluate a performance report. This marking key tells us how the answer should look like when you're evaluating a performance report. So in your answer, you must first start with you break down. Give us a breakdown. A breakdown of what? A breakdown of the mission in terms of the objectives and strategies. Then you come to the actual assessment as to whether each one of these items has been attended to. Then in the final section, we expect also the comments on other aspects of good reporting. Other aspects. So these are the 3 items that I'll be looking for. So when I'm marking, I want to look at these points. We're now going to go to our answer to check how this was done. We're now going to go to our suggested solution to see how was this done. Okay. Now you're going to notice that on the slides, we have a slide here. I captured the starting point of your answer. Okay. Now let's also bring in, at this point, let's bring in your question paper that we're all looking at. Let's bring in the question paper that we are all looking at. So after they have introduced us the company and how long they've been trading, they say the overall objective of the company is to deliver sustainable growth in value to shareholders by working in partnership with customers, deliver innovative and value for money solutions, utilizing the skills of highly trained workforce. It's from here that you need to do a clear breakdown. But here are the strategies, here are the objectives that I'm going to assess. So before you can do an assessment, you need to tell us what is it that you're assessing. And it just makes sense, isn't it? We cannot assess what we haven't identified. So the examiner says, you first identify items to be assessed. You identify items to be assessed. So that's exactly what we're gonna do now. So when we come here, we say, okay, fine. That's okay. We come here. So this is the breakdown that we're talking about before the assessment. Now, your report must be professional. The person who picks a report to read, they must be guided. And a number of you here know that you sit in high-level meetings in your organizations with your clients, the management, within the groups and stuff like that. Once you prepare a report must be easy to read. I'll give you some examples of some of the solutions that I receive when I give an assessment like this. Now, let's first start with the good approach, the professional approach. The current report has a number of strengths and weaknesses. These will be discussed according to whether the report measures performance toward the overall aims of the company and is well presented. This is what we want you to do. We want you to label your work. You signpost your work. With a subheading like this one, I want you to subhead your work like this. And if you notice, it's in bold. They've bolded it. This is where the professional marks go. This is where the professional marks go. So when we talk about professional marks, this is where these professional marks go. A signposted answer like this one. A signposted answer like this one. A good powerful introduction like this one. You're telling us what your approach is by saying, okay, I've been asked to do an assessment. You tell us that there are weaknesses and strengths in this report. And you tell us what you're going to do. That overall, you're going to check whether the overall aims have been attended to. And also there are other aspects such as good presentation that you're going to look at. Now, let me be very fair here. We cannot all say the same things. Word for word. But logic must be there. You must tell us, introduce your answer here. Let's use that concept. You introduce your answer. Introduce your answer so that I'm able to follow. Now here's, sometimes I get an answer, people start talking about the mission. The mission statement of the group can be broken. Why are you going to go? Why are you going to the mission first? Tell us what you want to do. You tell us that I'm going to evaluate the report by assessing whether it has captured all the contents of the mission. Put an opening statement. If I just find the report starting the mission statement of the company is, surely the question didn't mention the mission statement. The question never talked about the mission statement. The question talked about the evaluating of the performance report. So if you want, you must tell us, where does the mission statement come in? In evaluating, in assessing this report, we'll primarily or initially look at it, whether it has covered items in the mission statement. And now I know that, okay, this person actually is doing an assessment. And in their assessment, basically, they want to check whether the mission statement has been covered. So put an opening statement. Is that okay? Put an opening statement. Then after you have told us what you want to do, then you come here, you said, the current mission of the group can be broken down into a number of parts. You are telling us, very friendly, very professional. If you are the client, you even say, okay, I can follow what he's doing. The overall objective of the company is to deliver sustainable growth in value to shareholders. So he has identified that one. And this is done by working in partnership with the customers to deliver solutions which are innovative, which are value for money, and also utilizing the skills of a trained workforce. This is the breakdown which we are talking about. That marker, for this breakdown, if a person has done a good job like this, consider giving up to 2. Consider giving that. So the marking process is so objective. If I look here, I find that you haven't given me the breakdown. Certainly, I will say 0 out of 2. Because the breakdown was not done. If I feel the breakdown is done, but well, it's not good enough, I'll say 1 out of 2 marks. If there's no introduction here, you just drop the answer. Then when I'm looking at my professional marks, I'll ask myself a question: how much professional marks should I give for an answer which doesn't introduce a subheading? After this, now what happens? I want to find a paragraph for each one of these elements. I want to find now a paragraph on that, a paragraph on that, a paragraph on that, a paragraph on that, and a paragraph on that. And these paragraphs, I want them short. These paragraphs, I want them short. I don't want long paragraphs, I want short paragraphs. Simply give me an assessment of the extent to which they have or they have not. Does the report cover value for money assessment? Am I able to check whether my service is value for money? Does the report tell me whether a company is innovative or not? When I read the report, am I able to see? Yes, I'm recording, thank you very much. When I look at the report, am I able to check utilization of skills? Is this there? So what I want is report, the paragraphs. And the paragraph must clearly assess whether this has been reported or not, whether the report captures it or not. That's what I want to hear. If you think that to some extent they do, say so. To what extent they have done so, or how they have done so indirectly. Let us now look at how our examiners have illustrated this, what was expected here. So let's go now here. Okay. But since very soon you start answering 50-mark questions, let's also talk about presentations. Very soon you start answering 50-mark questions. You start submitting 50-mark questions so that I start going through and giving you some feedback. Yeah? So in a 50-mark question, we want salutations. To, from, date, and subject. So if you give you a question, we want to make sure that all these have been attended to. Secondly, we want an introduction, proper introduction. This is a must. We want proper introduction. What do you cover introduction? Summarize the question requirements. In your introduction, please summarize your question requirements. Yes, Mr. Rupaka, question?
Yes, sir. I wanted to find out if it's necessary to put the actual date, like the way we are able to see it, let's say December, you are writing the exam on 5 December. We put 5 December.
You want put it there, put it there. You are demonstrating how a report should be written. You are teaching us how to write a report. Please put it there. You put it there.
Okay, okay.
Mm.
Okay, thank you.
In the report, you must summarize the requirements. Now, don't go on and on writing, no. You know, if the introduction is too long, you know what it tells me? You have not practiced enough. Those who have practiced, they develop an art here. Within 3 lines, they are done. If somebody's introduction is long, then this one is not ready. And the markers start checking, is this person really ready? Because if they are ready, they must have seen most of the solutions that we don't go very far. Another item which I can talk about is this one. Please don't put 2 lines of a subject. Sometimes you get just a subject which covers 2 lines. Already there, you haven't done a good job on professional marks. You haven't. Be brief. Now, where do you pick all these ideas? It's when you review your past papers. That is why ACC has produced these past papers. These past papers that we have are there to teach us what to do and what not to do. The past papers are there to tell us how not to answer the questions and those how to answer the questions. So this must be short. In the introduction, be very brief. Let's take an example here. The report evaluates the current performance report used for annual board review. Very clear. Next, the customer rating survey method and reporting and examined. Very clear. Finally, the method of benchmarking to be used for divisions evaluated, and the division of benchmarking exercise is completed, and initial conclusions drawn. Full stop. The question requirements being summarized in your own ways. Let's come to the next one. Now here, label the question properly, please, please, please. Label the question. Part A, and put a subheading. Then from there, you tell us what you are going to do. You tell us what are you going to do here. How are you going to proceed? What route are you going to take? Then from there, you break down. Highlight what it is that you'll be assessing. Then now you can do the assessment. So let us now look at the assessment in terms of paragraphs. So remember, we said we want a paragraph for every item. And this is exactly what is happening here. This is exactly what is happening here. This paragraph is very clear which item is dealing with. This paragraph. Overall objective. And they have made a proper assessment overall. The report does not give information about the performance strategies which are in place to deliver the overall objectives. They've already introduced telling us. Then they start now talking about it, working in partnership with customers, value for money, innovations, and the skills. So like what we said, remember, there's a specific paragraph on the overall objective. Then this paragraph simply introduces the strategies now. That's a strategy. That's a strategy. That's a strategy. That's a strategy. This is what is expected from you. This is now when we find an answer which is like this, then the markers already know that this person has gone through several past papers and has seen, has understood what it means to evaluate a report. Are there any questions? Are there any questions on how to evaluate the report? The first part primarily is on the mission statement and high-level goals. And please do not bring the subsidiary points, those 4 points, the 4 out of 13. Don't bring them here, no. The third part is, even after talking about it so much, you find that you are evaluating a performance report, people start with subsidiary points. Those points that should come at the tail end. No, that is wrong. It means you haven't understood the whole essence of this exercise. So after I finish this now, you can now proceed. After you finish this now, you can now proceed to look at the other aspects. The 4 out of 13. So the 4 out of 13 now is here. These are the 4 out of 13 marks. Those marks we saw earlier on. They are here now. The report treats the division the same way as a group using industry. So we're talking about the averages. Not good enough. This report has got so much financial data, but even then, we are surprised that it does not mention on liquidity. The focus is financial. But in financial, notice that why didn't they talk about liquidity? And also probably even the issue of financial risk. In terms of presentation, we are happy. That's your assessment. However, we have a problem. What's the problem? This common provide a narrative commentary, which is not here. So these are examples. These are examples on other issues, other matters on good reporting, which we feel should have been attended to. So this is the issue, people, of how to evaluate a performance report. Do you have any questions? On how to evaluate a performance report? Do you have any questions on how to proceed if you ask to evaluate a performance report? Okay. As we go through other questions also, we will still come back and talk about these particular items. We now want to talk about breaking down the components in a question requirement. Breaking down components in a question requirement. How important is that and how do we do it? This question gave us an opportunity to do so. This question gave us an opportunity to do so. Where, let's come back here. Respond to the CEO's request for work on the method of divisional benchmarking proposed. How many marks have been given here? How many marks have been given here? 9 marks. Respond to CEO's request for work on benchmarking the 3 divisions. How many marks are here? 15. These marks look a lot. And you wonder, what am I going to say to get 9 marks? What am I going to say to get all the 15 marks? This now involves knowing how to break down the question. we need to learn how to break down the question. Into components. Into smaller or specific components. This is very important for us to get all the marks. So what are these specific components? Let's now go to the request. Let's go to the specific items. Here we are. Okay. In order to drive forward the integration of the division, the CEO has decided that they should be benchmarked against each other. He is aware that this is not the only method of benchmarking, and so initially one should provide an understanding of the different types of benchmarking. That's what your CEO wants. An understanding of the different types of benchmarking. And an evaluation of the usefulness of the proposed type of benchmarking. Now that becomes easy. That now becomes easy because it says that you must quickly tell us about the types of benchmarking that you're familiar with. And then you must identify the one that is being proposed. So the one which is being proposed, what is it? And you need to evaluate it. You need to evaluate that. So now the whole story has become a little bit easy. It has become a little bit easy. What of the 15 marks? What of the 15 marks? That's quite a lot. This is quite a lot. Let's do the breakdown as well. Let's do a breakdown. Finally, I supplied that in Appendix 3 to allow you to complete a benchmarking exercise. Now that statement sounds very innocent. Complete a benchmarking exercise. So it means that there's an exercise which is incomplete. And comment on the metrics used. And the results. You know, this statement looks very innocent. On the face of it, it looks like it's not loaded, but it's loaded because completing, that was 5 marks. Commenting on the metrics that are being used, that is another 5 marks that would give you. And the results, commenting on the results, this is another 5 marks. So now when the marker is marking, he has got his breakdown of marks. So you come to the calculations. Oh, out of the calculations, how much has this one gotten? Oh, he has gotten, or she has gotten 3 out of 5. So that's 3 out of 5. Then you come here. Are there any comments on the matrix? Now, where did the comment come from? The comments are coming from your criticisms here. You have criticized that the value for money is not there. You have criticized that the innovation is not being measured. You have said that working in partnership with customers is not there. So the question is, these new indicators, Are they attending to the items that were missing? That was the assessment which was needed. The last one now was really using the benchmarks or the ratios. It was now evaluating performance. This one now was just to evaluate the performance. This one now, you need to tell us how were they faring. So this is how we break down questions. This is how we ensure that we get as many marks as possible by breaking down the questions. So let us now review how our examiner did that. Let us review how that was done. So we now go here at the end, method of benchmarking now. So they've identified the methods of benchmarking. These are the ones, the same ones that we covered in our class. What were they? The one which was being proposed was an internal benchmarking. The other methods are external, where you go for a competing organization or a non-competing organization. So we've got internal here. They have mentioned that the one which was being proposed, and we'll come back to it, was internal. Then we've got the external. Competitor and non-competitor. Then we've got a functional benchmarking. Functional benchmarking, the third one, where we just go for a specific function. Then what do? We come now to talk about the advantages of internal benchmarking. They wanted to talk about that. And also the disadvantages of internal benchmarking. So the method that was going to be used, we need to do a clear evaluation. You need to evaluate that. So this is what the markers do when they're marking. The content of what you say in your assessment is important, but also to ensure that every part of the question has been attended to. Because students who get 48, who get 47, most of them is the fact that they didn't see a part of the question. So when the marker is going, you just find, look, this person didn't talk about the types of benchmarking. They didn't do that. So there's very little the marker can do, isn't it? So the types of benchmarking and the evaluation. Now, the computation, we'll look at the computation that was missing. There were 5 items that were asked for, which were missing. Then after you do the computation, there's no need of repeating these others, that's for teaching purpose. But what you do your computations, and then from there, you now comment. On the matrix, for instance, order book growth reflects sustainability. So earlier on, sustainability was not being measured, but now order book growth that they have introduced will do sustainability. Number of face-to-face interaction, top 10 customers, reflects what? Working in partnership with the customers. We are now going back to the original strategies you're commenting. What of innovative solutions is measured by the percentage of revenue from new products. caring for employees and nurturing their skills is now measured by the reduction in the incident rate. So what we are saying is that you are supposed to look at the proposed KPIs and evaluate them or comment on them. And the basis for commenting was the shortfall that we saw at the beginning. Then from there, after I've finished now, commenting on their proposals to show that actually they are good, they are closing the gaps that were identified in the preamble, we now come to do the evaluation. And now in this part now, we're evaluating how are they performing. When you look at inventory days, who's doing well? When you look at the order book growth, who's doing well? What of sales from the new products? Who's doing well? What of the safety incidents? Who's doing well? These items now are the ones that you calculated. So you're now doing the actual benchmarking. You're doing the actual benchmarking in this part of the question. You are now appraising the performance by comparing these three divisions. So this is how we break down the question to ensure that every component has been attended to. What you're going to fill in here will vary from people to people. Your comment on inventory days may not be the same, but we expect that each one of these elements and the comment under it. Okay, now we can have your comments. Can we have your comments now? I'm sure you went through the question. If there's somebody who has submitted of going through their submission. So let's go. What are your comments or what are your observations? Your comments or your observations are welcome.